Welcome to Bella Vista Gardening. I'm Geri Hoerner, and today I have with me Garry Lee. Garry is a master gardener, a fellow master gardener in Benton County, and we're going to be talking about vegetable gardening today. Garry is one of our best vegetable gardener growers. He's got wonderful vegetable gardens, and we'll also be talking about upcoming events in April, and also what to do in your garden in April. April's a busy season. We're trying to get through the snow that we've had in March and start our gardening season, although it may be a little late this year. And since we're talking about vegetable gardening, we haven't had a Meet the Masters segment for a while, and I thought we would go to see Marlin Roedel's garden. He's a vegetable gardener, and he's on the Meet the Masters program. He lives in Centerton, and this was taped in 2011. I'm in the wrong century here. And he's going to take us to a little tour of his vegetable garden, so let's go see his vegetables and how he grows them.
Very good. Welcome to Meet the Masters. We're having a cup of coffee this morning with Marlin Roedel in Centerton. We've been discussing the philosophy of raised beds and patch planting. Marlin is a very multifaceted individual, and I think you will enjoy getting to know him today.
My garden style is Darwinian, and by that I mean survival of the fittest. It's always an experiment. It's never been anything more than that. I've taken a lot of what I do just from experience. I didn't read about it first and then try it. I did it and then I read about it. Story of my life. I did it all backwards. But if I see any open ground out there at all, if I can see any soil, I don't have enough plants. So I crowd it and I let whatever survives grow. I would like to think the specialty I have is greens, lettuce, spinach. I cheat a little and use row covers. So most years I will have mature lettuce like romaine or bronze leaf prize head, a loose leaf head lettuce, before anybody else is even thinking about planting. I love it that way. The raised bed idea was a necessity here, and only because there's no real soil. And I don't know that I necessarily did it right, but I'll tell you how I do it. I started with a 2x6 frame and staked 4 corners so that it wouldn't move, and put down heavy newspaper first, right on top of the grass. The next thing I filled in with was compost from the Bentonville facility. I was sure the aeration would be great. I don't know if the moisture retention was real good, but it was some kind of medium. I couldn't just throw seeds on top of the newspaper. So that was level number 1. Well, 2 if you count the paper. The third thing was either rabbit litter, rotted steer manure. So there's really no soil in some of these beds at all. Fall has always been my favorite season of the year, and the reasons are many. We'll start by gathering wild rice in northern Minnesota, the old Indian way. I harvested rice almost every year that I lived up there. That would be like 36 years in a row. I also hunted. I'm primarily a bow hunter, but I'm not past picking up a rifle. Just this past winter, I ended a month fishing trip in Texas by shooting a couple of pigs on a hunting preserve in Texas. Y'all want to try some of that wild hog? My earliest childhood memories are surely with my grandfather. Grandpa was a cowboy. Didn't go to school, didn't read, didn't write. His saddle, by the way, is in the Cowboys Hall of Fame in western North Dakota, whatever town it is, Dickinson, or anyway, it's there. He could make a rawhide lariat, a rawhide bridle. He was a great man. One summer when I was spending the whole summer with him, he got in his car and grabbed a couple pails, and away we went to pick June berries. Gramp drives a lot like he rides a horse. When he decides to leave the road, he just drives off the road and drives through the hills and hopes he doesn't drop a wheel in a hole or get hung up on a rock or something. And we found ourselves a little ravine with a bunch of tall Juneberry plants in it, and got out and started picking. And the next thing I'm knowing is I look up on a skyline, and I see this man on a pinto pony skylined up there, and that person is stopping and looking at us, and pretty soon riding down to us. We were on a reservation. We didn't belong there. He let us know that real quick. We had to leave. Sorry, Gramp, you picked the wrong place to turn off the road, but it was all in good fun, and I mean, we didn't hurt anybody, and we didn't get hurt, so it was fine. But that's my natural way of gardening, again, is let nature grow it, and we'll go out and find it, we'll gather it, we'll pick it. So you can plant those things if you wish in the borders of your property, or for wildlife, or for yourself, or you can just go harvest them. Some things that people might not know about me, even though we've met and talked, is that for years I have tried to live off the land. I'm a firm believer that a person can be self-sufficient. I don't mean just gardening. Obviously, there's a whole lot of other skills involved. I guess I could just carry this story way too far. I lived in Indian country. I have no trouble at all with their religion, with their concept of the circle of life. In fact, it fits exactly into how I feel and how I believe. So it was a real good time.
The preacher man says it's the end of time, and the Mississippi River, she's a going dry. The interest is up and the stock market's down, and you're only getting mugged if you go downtown. I live back in the woods, you see, a woman and the kids and the dogs and me. I got a shotgun, a rifle, and a four-wheel drive, and a country boy can survive. Country folks can survive. We can skin a buck and run a trot line, and a country boy can survive. Country folks can survive. Country boy can survive. Country folks can survive.
Well, I love those Meet the Master segments. You know, the Meet the Master gardeners are so diverse and just so interesting. Everyone has a different story, and Marlin's one of a kind.
A master.
A master at whatever he does. So, but as far as vegetable gardening goes, you are, I think, the king of master gardener, vegetable gardeners. I'm not sure. I'm not a very good vegetable gardener.
Well, I have done my share, and as I told you our last segment, I raised 8 kids and a grandchild out of our garden 12 months out of the year, and I had a lot of help from the kids, but we started from ground zero. Absolutely nothing but grass and weeds, and we built it up in 12 years to where we're totally self-sustaining, minus the necessities of flour and sugar and stuff. But we learned so much, the right way and the wrong way to do things, and we tried to do the wrong way only once.
That's all
Hopefully
you need to do.
we were working on the right way to do things after that. But
And you're doing raised beds, right?
raised beds and container gardening now.
Oh, containers too?
We had excellent soil out there. Once I got it amended and worked with it all natural, I'm an organic grower. And now we're working in containers as well as raised beds to vegetables and also for flowers and about everything we grow, with the exception.
Well, with all the rocks we have around here, it's very difficult just to grow anything in the ground without, really working that ground for years before you can plant anything. So raised beds are probably the easiest.
The easiest
and quickest way to get started.
And basically cost-free, because you can salvage so much material as rocks and stack them up and then put your amendments inside the rocks and use that as your border, as opposed to going out and buying lumber and trying to build something up from the ground. You've already got the start of it right there.
Okay, and you've started your tomatoes already, right?
Yes, I have started my
Yeah.
tomatoes. I've got tomato plants down here that, would you like to look at
Yes,
my
I'd like to see what you've
tomato
started
plants? And the interesting thing about my tomato plants is how I start them and what I start them in and what I do with them after they're grown. Now, this is a newspaper bag that I utilize to enclose and encapsulate.
That makes a little greenhouse.
It's a greenhouse.
Yeah.
I blow a little air into it, which I have plenty of, and then I use egg cartons.
I've seen that.
These are the 18 pack 8 cartons.
18 eggs.
And I take a nail and punch into the top, but I leave the bottom intact after you separate them. So that works as your reservoir for the water. You put the seeds in, and then you just put a light layer of material on top of them. And then you put the bag over it, blow it up.
Okay, now how long do you leave the bag on? Or is this about ready to come out of the bag?
Yes, I had it out of the bag already, but
Okay.
I put it back in for transport.
Okay.
But I have 3 different varieties in here. I do a beefsteak, which is an heirloom. I do Brandywine, which is an heirloom, and then I have an heirloom cherry tomato in there also. But you can see I don't want to get any water on anything.
Yeah.
But I put 4 seeds in each one, and you see some of them,
They're all up.
at least 4. Some
Yeah.
of them have 5, so my vision isn't always that great. But
Okay.
that's the way I start my seeds. And I've started my tomatoes, my peppers, and I've started some bean plants, this same method, so that I'll have them when they're ready to go in the ground.
And it's usually about mid-May. I don't put mine out till about mid-May. The freeze is usually April 10th to 15th, the last freeze, but they don't like it when it's cold.
No,
at
no.
night.
Well, you
not gonna grow.
actually could be thwarting your growth
Yeah.
by getting them out too early, because they just say, hey, I don't like this.
That's right, and they're stunted.
Yeah, they'll
And then
shut themselves
they'll
off.
shut down. So, and then I've started some lettuce also. This past, well, let's see, late March, I started some lettuce to put out. But lettuce doesn't like it too hot, so
No.
it's going to be over with.
Interesting you should say lettuce. This is my lettuce grower.
Ah,
I fill it up with soil, any kind and every kind. Usually what my soil comes from is older plants that I've repotted, and I take that soil and put it in my planter box.
and just reuse it.
I seed it with lettuce. I just completely cover it with lettuce. Then when I'm ready to harvest, I just take them out, cut one off, separate them a little bit, take them off, cut it off, or just use the whole thing with minus the roots. And then the rest of them just flourish and keep growing until you've pulled everything, eliminated all of them, and you've had a lettuce crop starting, I would say 2 weeks from now. You will be eating fresh lettuce, and depending on what you put in your soil tells you what you're going to get out of your plants.
And you only use organic materials.
Only organic material, organic additives such as the fertilizer. I use fish emulsion, and I have a place down in Johnson that provides a great deal of organic materials at Nitron Industries. And he also has a product called A35 that is a multiple fertilizer. And I call it a soil amendment as opposed to fertilizer. But a lot of fish base, which, if you'll recall, in the old days on the Indians used to plant their corn, they always put a fish in the bottom before they put the
corn seed in.
They put the dirt on top of that, put the corn seed in, and then covered it up.
And that fed that corn all
fantastic
season.
corn, and it also held moisture in the soil. So I use primarily the fish derivatives for my...
And then you also do use the Bentonville compost.
I use the compost from Bentonville. It's heated up to 140, 170 degrees. People are concerned about the pathogens and the contaminants in it. They have mostly leached out because all of the material is on asphalt. And they do not do anything on soil. So it leaches down to the asphalt, and when they go and turn it, they turn the top layer and they leave that bottom layer there.
So that's collected all the bad parts of the
That's collected the so-called garbage, you might say.
Yeah. Because I know there are some people that don't like to use they're leery about using the Bentonville
I've been using
compost.
it now for ever since they opened the composting center. And you get compost as well as mulch. And mulch is probably just as important as the compost because you mulch your plants. Like my lettuce, when it starts getting thin, I put mulch on it, and it helps retain the moisture.
Right.
And
keeps the weeds
plants,
down too.
Yes.
Yeah.
Plants in your gardens, the best thing in the world you can use is a mulch on top of the compost.
Oh, absolutely. Right. So, and then what else are you growing this year?
Peppers and tomatoes. Then I will put my beans in. I will grow squash. I will grow carrots. Another good thing to start when you start your lettuce is radishes and also the spinach varieties. And they have a new dwarf spinach out that doesn't grow the extensive leaves, but it grows thicker and heavier than the spinach that we used to get,
like a clump.
The old Bloomsdale ever blooming. And it's excellent food.
And that's such a good nutritious
salads,
food too.
Oh, it's fantastic.
I love spinach.
In salads. I have my onions in from last year, and I do onions, I do shallots, and I do chives. And those all from last year.
Okay, do you plant garlic also?
I have garlic in 24/7. It's in all the time.
All the time.
I utilize the planters again, and I have some grow boxes. They're 30 inches wide and by 18 inches deep. And I grow a lot of my stuff in there as a raised bed.
Right. Because the soil, they don't need about 2 or 3 feet of soil for vegetables. They just need a good, base of 6 to 8, 10 inches.
That's the maximum, they say. If you're going to build your own boxes, 2 2x6s stashed is perfect.
It's 12 inches.
And well, they actually come out to be 11. They cut back our lumber price too, so everything has changed. But yes, and you don't use treated.
Yeah, never use treated wood. Yeah.
Cedar is a little expensive, but they last for a long time. Redwood is very expensive, but now they're going to the composite lumber.
Oh yeah.
And composites will last a lifetime until you actually destroy it yourself.
Right.
And they will form, which is something they will take on a bow really bad. So you have
they're
to
more flexible.
Stake them a little bit, but they work excellent for
like
for
Trex or one of
containers.
those products. So, well, I'm just anxious to see what we're going to be growing in our gardens this year. I think more people are growing vegetables, and I think that's a good thing to do. You can control what you're eating and grow what you like.
And it's healthy.
And it's healthy.
Very healthy.
Very healthy for us. So, anyway, well, there's a lot of things going on now in April. We're going to start our plant sales, and then the plant sale at Village Wastewater is going to be taking place. We're having two in April. One's April 20th on Saturday and April 27th on the next Saturday, and they're going to be from 8 to 12. And the Bella Vista Garden Club is going to have plants there for sale, along with the Ozark Hills Daylily Club will have daylilies, hybridized daylilies for sale at those sales. But the Garden Club, the Bella Vista Garden Club's big sale is going to be on Saturday, May 4th at Tanyard Creek. So that'll run from 8 to 1, something like that, 8 to 1 o'clock. So that's where you can really get some wonderful plants that are from this area. We pull from the various gardens, and we know they'll grow here.
Right.
We may have some of the plants from the school, from the University of Arkansas Horticulture Club. We may have some of their leftover plants from their sale. We're working on that too. So Compton Gardens will also have their sale on May 11th on a Saturday, and they kind of, well, they really use a lot of native plants. They sell a lot of native plants, and that's their primary source is are the native plants. And the Bentonville Garden Club will have their sale in Bentonville on May 4th also. I think it's usually at the Frisco train station or whatever that station is in Bentonville. So there'll be something in the paper about that.
Oh, they don't, yeah,
by
the library there.
Because the farmers market will be on the square starting in
Correct.
April.
Correct.
And the Master Gardeners, they're involved with the farmers market.
They'll be there every Saturday from now on, and usually they're there on First Friday also. So they try and have a representation from the Master Gardeners group.
So is it every Saturday or just one Saturday a month?
The farmers market will be every Saturday,
yeah.
And there will be representation from the
Master Gardeners
every
very
Saturday
good.
in one form or another.
Right. And they're starting their hotline. Their hotline's coming up this month in April. Well, it started in March, I think. So we have the hotline going. If you have any questions or any problems, you can call and talk to a Master Gardener. And the number's 271-1060. They're there from 9 to 12 and from 1 to 4. And if they can't answer your question, they'll get back to you and maybe mail you some information if you need it. So it's a wonderful source of information is the hotline. And they also have a wonderful website. It's bentoncountygardening.org. And there's a lot of information on their website. Now the things to do in April, other than the plant sales in May, we don't want to be planting our tomatoes yet. So you might wait till the May sales and then late April sales and get your tomatoes. Village Wastewater has wonderful tomato varieties, and they grow those in the greenhouse, and they're really a great start on your plant. They're not just little tiny seedlings. When you buy them there, they're
Right.
pretty well established, and they're growing and they're healthy. So
One thing I might add to that is the farmers markets will all be open coming Saturday, and I'm talking about Bella Vista, Bentonville, Rogers, Springdale, and also Fayetteville will be open. And so they will be able to provide you with some plant material. If you're interested in different kinds of plant materials, they will have that available to you.
right, we have wonderful resources there at the farmers market. So, but in April, you need to start putting out your hummingbird feeders. I usually put mine out the 1st of April if they don't freeze. You have to watch your weather. We've had some cold winters or cold nights up until the end of March. So just watch your nighttime temperature, and your sugar to water ratio is 4 cups of water to 1 cup of sugar. Now if you have it any stronger than that, it's not good for the birds, and if it's weaker than that, they're not going to like it. But that kind of replicates your nectar.
And also, it's spring cleanup is a good time for you to get your leaves cleaned up. You'll have them blowing everywhere under the sun, but if you get a chance to get out with a rake, pick your leaves up, or if you've got a leaf vacuum, pick them up, run them through the leaf vacuum, put them in a plastic bag, a black plastic bag, put some moisture in, seal it up, and set it out by your compost bin or behind the garage or wherever. And by next spring, you'll have fantastic compost in that black plastic
You
bag.
have that leaf mold is
You get some
wonderful.
leaf usage,
Yeah.
and you also get your weed residue in the same bag.
Right.
Put your green and brown and water all together.
That's right. So you have instant compost, or not instant, but you'll have
Very
compost eventually. And then perennials, April's the time to start dividing your perennials or adding perennials to your garden. They start coming up and showing their little heads, and as soon as they do, it's a good time to divide them, maybe share them with neighbors, and plant your trees and shrubs for this summer to get them a good start.
Your annuals, this is another thing that you've got to be very careful about this time of the year. You've got your annuals that are going into the ground, but be careful about planting them too early. I usually keep my annuals that I'm going to put outside in my garage if I buy them early. And when I'm comfortable outside, usually my plants are going to be comfortable outside also. So kind of use yourself as a measuring stick as when you want to put those things in the ground.
Right.
And also check your weather report, please.
Right. You know, if you put them out and they're cold, they're not going to grow. Also, the bulbs, be sure and leave your foliage on your daffodils for at least 6 to 8 weeks. That feeds the bulb for next year. And you can put leaves around your daffodils to hold up the stems right now in the early April, or they're bent over from the snow and the cold, and that's, if you just support them with leaves, that'll keep them up straight. So.
And you want to be sure that you take care of your house plants. Try not to move anything outside again until you're comfortable outside. If you're not comfortable outside, your plants are not going to be comfortable outside. So if you want to harden them off a little bit, put them in the garage or some place where you have a controlled temperature, but try not to get them outside too early. They will be much better off for you and for them.
Right. They can't rush the season. And on your lawns, you want to fertilize. You don't want to fertilize your lawn until about 2 weeks after it greens up. So that's when you want to apply your fertilizer to lawns. And roses, the new growth is out, and you just got to fertilize. They are heavy feeders, and be sure to watch for your black spot and start treating that early. And then for any other information, gardening information, you can go to the Bella Vista Garden Club. They have a website. It's bellavistagardenclub.com. And we have a lot of information there and some links. The next Bella Vista Garden Club meeting is going to be at the Lutheran Church on Cooper Road in Forest Hills on April 24th. And we will be having a program, organic and hydroponics. Hydroponics. I couldn't get that out. And it's going to be by Jesse and Trina Weimer. That's our program for the meeting. Guests are always welcome to that. And I want to thank you, Gary, for coming today and sharing all your information about vegetable gardening. I'm going to have to get into more vegetable gardening, but most of my sun is dedicated to roses and daylilies, so I don't have a whole lot of sun to grow those vegetables. And you do need sun.
Rose petals are edible too.
Oh yes, and so are daylily flowers are
Probably
edible
also.
too. So I do grow vegetables, I guess. So I hope you've enjoyed the show, and I hope you'll join us next month. And up until then, don't forget to stop and smell the roses.